Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Always heart-filling to see such a big public for a conversation about Gaza, Palestine, and the ongoing war. So really, thank you very much for being with us today. Today I am in the company of three fantastic speakers who are engaging with Palestine from different positions, but also specifically engaging with the gruesome war that we've been witnessing for the past 6 months through very important interventions. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking. I'd much rather give them the floor. I'm going to start with quickly introducing our speakers and have them tell us in 2 minutes each what is the exact area of intervention. I'm going to start with Wafa, who is, Wafa Abdurrahman is the founder and general director of Palestinian, which is a feminist media organization. Wafa, quickly tell us what is it that you're doing these days engaging with the current war in Gaza?
Good morning. I'm very happy to be here, though the word happy doesn't really reflect or describe how we feel as Palestinians. My name is Wafa Abdurrahman, founder and director of Palestinian, which is a media organization, a feminist media organization. It's very important to know that we've been working in Gaza and West Bank in Gaza since 2009. And we have 4 main programs, but the most important 2 programs are the Women Journalist Club that has 500 women journalists working in Gaza. So we have journalists, this is first, and the second is our feminist online media platform that is called Nawa. You can look us up on the internet, and we've been working, providing coaching, capacity building, psychological support, providing all kinds of support to women journalists. And when the genocide started, we were the first respondent to the needs of women and men journalists, providing hygiene kits, dignity kits, warm clothes, but most importantly, we continued to provide cash assistance to hundreds of journalists, and we established different tents for women journalists reporting from hospitals to maintain their privacy as well as their integrity. And we're continuing to do this work.
Fantastic, thank you, Wafa. We'll get to talk more about these very journalists in Gaza and their experiences by listening to Yumna. But before we go to Yumna, I'm going to ask Nadim Nashif, who is the founder and executive director of Hamle, a digital rights organization in Palestine. And same question, what is it that you're doing these days engaging with the current war?
Thank you, Lina. So Hamle is a Palestinian digital rights organization. We have been working for a long time now in a battle, a struggle in front of social media companies and other internet companies who are discriminating Palestinians, who are in many cases also silencing and tuning down the Palestinian narrative, the Palestinian voices, including Meta and other social media companies, and including also digital payment platforms. In the current events, everything was doubled. Everything became much more harsh in the terms of silencing the Palestinian voices, limiting. We have been struggling with every case by case. Hamle basically documented for more than 4,000 cases of silencing, of closing account, taking down content. We have been escalating this to the social media companies and fighting for every and each one of these accounts to bring them back. We managed with some to do, with some we did not. But also during this period, we have been working a lot also to document the incitement that's happening in Hebrew language in the social media. So we have a situation basically that the Arabic content is over-moderated, lots of takedowns that should not be happening, it's very strong in enforcement because the company apparently, as we know from different leaks that were published, decided that this is the problem. And on the other side, you have the Hebrew language that there is no effective classifier, which is basically the automation of the content moderation, which means that basically there are, I would say, we detected millions of conversations in Hebrew language in 3 months between October until the end of 23. That are full of incitement language through a model that we developed that is based AI, that is detecting all of these incitement in it.
Thank you, Nadim. And then last but not least, on our panel today, we have Yumna Sayed, who is the Al Jazeera English Gaza correspondent. I do not like to think of heroism in hierarchies, but there is nothing that matches the heroism of journalists from Gaza covering this war inside Gaza. So tell us how you spent the first 3 months of the war, and then we'll move on to asking some more questions about this experience.
Thank you, Lina. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be among such a large community of journalists. From this spot, I'd like to thank first the International Media Support Organization for arranging this panel for me. And from my spot here today, and among all of you different journalists from everywhere in the world, I would like to pay tribute to the remarkable job of every Palestinian journalist covering this genocide in the Gaza Strip for the past 7 months until now. And when I say Palestinian journalist, I mean every reporter, every producer, every cameraman behind every camera, every photojournalist out there risking their lives and living and enduring the everyday suffering like every other civilian in the Gaza Strip, and yet continuing to present and to report and to show the entire world every single challenge and suffering that the people are living. And many of these journalists have not even shown their faces to the public. Our job as journalists in Gaza, my job is Yumna. Despite living every horrific detail since the beginning of this genocide that was completely different than any other war that we have covered in the Gaza Strip. Because since day one, the Israeli military has made it very obvious to us as journalists that we are direct targets in this war. In this war, all our media offices were completely destroyed. Journalists were under fire from day one. It's not a surprise, honestly, for Palestinian journalists working and covering the regions of the occupied Palestinian territories, whether in the West Bank or in the Gaza Strip specifically, for their journalists to be targeted. We've seen that, we've witnessed that. We've seen a lot of our colleagues fall, either being injured or killed, while we covered the protests of the Great March of Return in the previous years, where reporters and journalists were shot at least 300 meters away from the security fence. They were sniped by sniper bullets. So it was not a surprise for us. It was not a surprise that at every war, media outlets and offices were targeted from day one, making it almost impossible for us to go on with our jobs. But despite all that, despite finding ourselves forced out of our offices without instruments, without equipment, finding ourselves having to work in very harsh conditions, in very thin tents with almost no equipment at all, except our mobile phones, and very few equipment of what we could save, we did what we could to show the world what was really going on in the Gaza Strip. I was surprised, honestly, by the outcome of many international media outlets and journalists that did not stand in support of their colleagues in the Gaza Strip. Over 130 Palestinian journalists were killed in the Gaza Strip, and dozens have been injured. And we as journalists have not seen that strong, support. We have not seen that strong publishing and showing of such war crimes against Palestinian journalists in the Gaza Strip. And yet, we're still going on. This war, this genocide is still ongoing, and those Palestinian journalists are still standing until this day.
Thank you, Yumna. But we keep hearing there are no journalists on the ground in Gaza. What is this? Is this misinformation?
For 7 months now, no international journalists have been able to enter the Gaza Strip. And when I say to enter the Gaza Strip, to actually enter freely and independently to do their jobs as journalists in the Gaza Strip. A journalist is an investigator, a looker for the truth, a fact checker that presents everything to the audience worldwide, right? International journalists have neglected and abandoned the right to force the Israeli army to let them or to permit them from entering the Gaza Strip to cover this war. This is something that is unprecedented and has not happened anywhere else in the world. But yet, international journalists have given up on that right. But Palestinian journalists have done what they could, despite every single suffering and challenge that they have endured in the past month. But after all this, for a journalist to come and say that the major problem in the conflict or the genocide or the war in Gaza is that there are no journalists on the ground covering the war, that is truly an unprecedented insult to all these journalists who have been killed, who have lost their families, who have lost their homes, who have lost their loved ones, and for those journalists who are still alive but are injured and they have lost parts of their bodies. And this entire world would have known nothing, would have seen nothing of what has been happening in Gaza since day one if it wasn't for those Palestinian journalists risking their lives every single minute, not hour, every single minute, going to the places that are being targeted, everywhere, being everywhere at every time, and covering every single thing that is happening since day one in this genocide. You would have not been informed if it weren't for those Palestinian journalists that you now claim that there are no journalists in Gaza.
Thank you, Wafaa. Sorry, thank you, Yumna, مش وفاء. So just like who is a journalist and what is journalism is a myth that is being debunked in this war, other myths are also being debunked. So I'm going to turn to Wafaa and ask her this. So basically, Wafaa, they say in genocide, women are the first to be targeted for clear reasons. Huh? So 10,000 women have been killed thus far in this war. 6,000 of them are mothers, leaving behind 19,000 children. As a feminist organization working closely with women journalists in Gaza, but also interfacing with the world through a set of feminist ideals, how are you shedding light on this atrocity, and how are you telling the world about it? What difference does it make when we say to the world that women are being killed? Does it make a difference when women are being killed in Gaza?
I think it's very hard to talk after Yumna, and I believe the festival should have given more voices, more space to Palestinian journalists coming from Gaza. And so again, thank you IMS for bringing Yumna here, and thank you for speaking. It's important to say I'm a Gazan myself. I still have a family there. But I'm privileged to be working from the West Bank, which is a relatively safer place than Gaza. But I always insist, you need to hear and listen the Gazans themselves. Being a Gazan doesn't give me the right to talk on your behalf. I try my best to voice your voices when you're absent, but when you are present, it should be given to you completely. So thank you, Yumna. I'll go back to your question. And sorry for crying, or I'm not sorry, actually. I'm not sorry. It's true that I'm sad, but I'm angry. I'm an angry Palestinian woman, angry Palestinian feminist. What does it mean to be a feminist? And this is a question to all of us. The first thing, the first principle is believing the victims. For the first time that I see it, that the victims are not believed. We had to prove to the world that the Israeli bombings and the Israeli bullets kill us, really kill us. We have to prove that, and I don't know how to do that. The blood is a real blood. It's not fake. Imagine asking the victim to prove their victimization. That was the first thing that the feminist movement in the world failed to address or failed to understand, or actually chose not to see. So the victims, that was first. And out of this, for instance, with Palestinian, the first week we were doing the reporting, we called it Gaza under attack. But then the second week, I made the decision as a feminist. It's Gaza genocide. It's not an attack. It's not a war. And I had a discussion with my team, like, we have to wait for the international community to say it's genocide. I said, no. It's exactly like a woman getting raped, but then you're not allowed to use the word rape. And then those around her will tell her, why don't you say sexual harassment? Why don't you say harassment? I'm the one who's raped. I'm the one who could say if this is rape or not. So I'm the one to say this is genocide and not simply a war or a conflict, as some people prefer to do it. So this is feminism. The structural violence and the issue of we're not numbers. Nobody wanted to address the structural violence that is coming from a state. The structural violence is related to the roots of violence. As feminists, we always look at the roots. But for this moment of history, the international, the well-known, the model feminists failed us, and they didn't look at the roots. And that the story didn't start on October. No, it's been going on for 75 years. This is first. And then how do you name the state violence? This is second. But worse, when we're dealt with as numbers, when the number of the children killed amounted to 4,000 children, we stopped at the editorial team. Like, how to report, what to tell the world. Would it make a difference? And we decided, no, actually we're not working numbers. We will tell stories, and we will tell the lives behind the stories, behind the people and the numbers, including the stories of journalists. So in order not to keep them as numbers, there are lots of stories of our women journalists. Hiba al-Abadleh. She was one that we trained in debate. She got an award from Palestinians as the best debater at universities. She is a very active journalist, young with a smile. She's beautiful. She's a single mother with a 7-year-old daughter. She made the issue of being single mother easy as a piece of cake. She's laughing, she's challenging all the odds, and yet she's reporting. And actually, in the first month of the genocide, she was cooking for those who were displaced, she was helping, but then she was bombarded at her family. She's still under the rubble with her daughter. This is a name that you need to remember. Hiba al-Abadleh. She's not buried yet. Ala al-Hams was also a friend. She was attacked and bombed in November, badly injured. I tried to help her get out for medical treatment. I talked to her on Thursday. She was pregnant. And on Saturday, there was another attack that was in February, another attack to the family, and she was killed. So she lost her life with her child. So Adis Cake was one of the very wonderful young women journalists. She had a wonderful potential. She worked with Palestinians, producing a TV talk show for youth. Saad wasn't killed in a bombardment. Saad had 2 little children, 3 and 2 years old. She was killed with a heart attack, grieving. She was displaced. She was living in a tent after living in a big villa. She lost her life. Those are what we need to remember and take home. And I really urge you to remember Yumna. She survived, and survived by chance. But there are 17 women who couldn't make it, and there are many who might not make it. So would it make a difference? I asked our journalists. Do you still, how do you continue the reporting when the world is not really acting upon what is happening? No one is holding Israel accountable. No one is, all the systems have failed us, the international community, the human rights, Where do you get the strength to report? Mara, who's a mother of a 5-year-old boy, she's 34. She said, I report out of guilt because I'm still living and I feel guilty for continue living, and this is why I report. Yafa, she says, yes, I know the world doesn't treat us as humans, and maybe for them we're simply animals, as the Israeli have been repeating and saying. But I want them to remember, and history will remember, and I want this to be documented. So at any point when anybody comes and says, we didn't know, then you lie. We all know. This is the most documented genocide, the most ignored. Thank you.
Thank you, Wafa. And I hope we can find a way together for someone like Marah to be able to report out of hope and not out of guilt. I guess this is the only responsibility that stays after all what we've seen. I'll turn to Nadim now and tell you that even the internet is occupied when it comes to Gaza. So basically you've worked with that space of the internet, thinking of also the edifice of rights that can come out of it because it has been a space of possibility, of transnational possibility, and this possibility also is of specific importance when we're talking about an enclave. Gaza has been under siege since 2007, and during this war, it's more so under siege, an unprecedented siege. So the internet is the only space, and yet also the internet has been occupied. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yes, so the internet is controlled, is occupied, is not as free as we expect. The main platforms, the main corporates who's controlling the main platforms are having a very clear position. They are mostly coming from the US. They are mostly aligning with the US administration policy. They are mostly aligning themselves with Israel in a very clear way. And they having a very close tie with the Israeli ecosystem, including technological, including in ads, money, political ties, etc. And from there, it starts the whole kind of structured discriminatory policies almost by all of these companies. And this reflects itself basically on silencing Palestinians, preventing the Palestinian narrative. Each time that there is a crisis, like if we go back to May 21 with the Sheikh Jarrah uprising, with the citizen journalists who were like covering what's happening there, the live streams, that they basically shut them down, not allowing the people to report what's happening to their families, to their houses with the forced eviction. Similarly to what happened at that time in Al-Aqsa Mosque, and later also in this current war and genocide, we see the same policies. And this is not something that we, NGOs like Hamle are saying. This is something that there was an audit about it after May 21. And the independent company that did the audit, who was commissioned, by the way, by Meta, they said, yes, basically there is a bias between content moderation in Arabic and in Hebrew. And later on, when the war started, there was this leaks coming from Meta and were published by Wall Street Journal that also spoke clearly like how the company define things, like who are the bad guys, the good guys, who we should, limit their freedom of expression by lowering the assurance of the content that is violating. So basically this is automated systems. And in a normal times, the assurance must be around 80%. They lower it to 25%. So this is very aggressive approach to content moderation. This means that there are lots of false positive and things that are taken down that by the company itself and its own community standards should not be taken down. But what's worrying also is there's a genocide happening, but the genocide and the genocidal rhetoric that is happening in their own platform and the other platforms is, going wild, Nothing is being removed. We are talking about millions of conversations that includes that, the worst words of burn, of kill, of torture, whatever you can imagine in these conversations, and they are still being there. And we have been communicating with the companies, demanding, sending them examples. At certain stage, what we did is basically, and this basically actually came after that we saw that there are ads, not just a normal content, ads supposed to have a higher level of scrutiny, right? You're not supposed to profit from hate, from incitement. There was an ad by an Israeli settler group that was calling for assassination of American activist who's a pro-Palestinian. There were ads that were calling, Palestinians in Arabic language, go to Jordan and stuff like this, and encouraging transfer. So we at Hamli, we had 20 sets of ads, again, including all the horrible words that we all know that are used, like wipe out Gaza, kill all of Gazans, etc., etc. And we wanted to see if the ad manager of this system would approve them. And they approved all of them. You cannot imagine, there is hardly anything. So basically, as a Hebrew speaker, you can go to the platforms and say whatever you would like to say. And in Israel, this is not ordinary people who are doing this. This orchestra, it started from the president till the simplest soldier. Everybody is inciting. Everybody is calling for to incredible levels that you cannot believe that these companies are allowing this. We reached different levels of executives, and we spoke with them, and until today, this is still existing. So this tells you how much there is processes of dehumanization of Palestinians, whose life matter. Yeah. Why? You're doing all the protections to one side. But you're not doing anything to the other side, and you're allowing it. And if you're allowing it, then you are complicit in genocide, because you're allowing this rhetoric, and this rhetoric is doing some kind of build-up for this genocide. And I think we need to think very clearly about how to hold basically these companies accountable for the horrible things that they have been doing.
Thank you, Nadim. It is arguable that some of this hate speech that we've seen online, especially from the officials, let's say, can be used actually to establish intent, which is the main factor that could go in proving whether there is genocide or not. But that is if we still have trust in international law mechanisms. We're yet to see. But before we open it to the public for a quick round of questions, I just want to hear also, through a quick round of answers from you, what is this one thing that you're taking away with you? What is this one thing that is staying with you from this war, and that you intend to keep working on in the days to come? Yumna.
One thing that I took with me away when I survived this war is the abundance of the international community towards the Palestinian people in Gaza. I took also with me the double standards that have been practiced on the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip, and how even the international journalists that, I mean, journalism, like for me, as someone who I have not studied journalism as an academic component of my education, and I learned about it and I read about it and I educated myself about it. I knew how important of a weapon journalism is, how strong your word and your pen as a journalist is, and that you are a warrior to show the truth. But what I've seen, that this is not the main, let's say, the main motive for journalists to present or to show or to look for the truth and show it, despite any political agenda that is ongoing. To work truly independently, to fight for the freedom of speech that you have been for many years lecturing the third world countries about, that you have failed to practice when it came to covering this genocide on the Gaza Strip. And I know that I've done whatever I could have done from inside Gaza. I regretted for so long abandoning Gaza and leaving, but it was my only choice to save the lives of my children. And at that point, on that night, when I made the decision to leave, it was very simple. It was just choosing between being a mother or continuing to be a reporter inside Gaza. So I chose my children's lives, and I chose being a mother over being a reporter. But when I came out, I found that I can still contribute, I can still continue speaking about Gaza, about the Palestinians in Gaza, about this genocide, about every single detail and suffering and challenge that so many people don't even know about. You see on your screens the bombardments and the children killed and injured and the people displaced in thousands of tents that have stretched everywhere. But you don't see the details of how these people are living inside these tents, how much they struggle to get some water to drink, how much they struggle to get some food to feed their children, how much they struggle at night when they sleep, how these tents are very cold in the night and very hot in the mornings, and they're full of flies, and there are no toilets in these remote areas. By the way, these areas that have been designated as safe humanitarian zones for the Palestinians that were displaced from their homes. Now, Israel is calling for these displaced Palestinians to move from these tents and go back to the south to Khan Yunis. You know what happened when they went back? They found no homes. They only found rubble and debris. And Israel does not care where they will sleep at night, where they will stay, where their children will sleep, where their elderlies will stay. And no one is talking about it. Because maybe those people outside of Gaza don't even think about these small details that every single Palestinian, whether you're a doctor, you're a journalist, you're a normal resident, is living every single day. So this is what I'm doing now. I'm talking about Gaza. I will continue talking about Gaza. I will continue talking about the suffering and the challenge of the people inside Gaza to the outside world.
I amplify every word that was said by Yumna, but I will also take back with me the fact that we stand alone as Palestinians, maybe joined by those who are supporting justice. I wouldn't say peace, because it's becoming a meaningless word in our dictionary. I'll take back with me, and I will not forget how many journalists and media outlets were complicit in this genocide. Not talking about it is complicity. Talking and taking the side of the oppressor, the occupier, accepting one narrative being biased, this is also complicity. I will not forget the position of the feminist and the main feminist who stood up without questioning for a second if the Israeli propaganda was right or wrong. The minute there was simply any talk of rape, everybody took the stand and wrote so many statements. When the rape of Palestinian women by Israeli soldiers, and even before October, was investigated, was ratified, was fact-checked, no one is talking, no feminist talks about it. The dehumanization will continue like this. But is there hope? In the governments, the answer is no. In the mainstream media, the answer is no. In the solidarity movement on the ground, yes. On the youth movements in Europe and in the US, yes. But this will take very long time to translate into whatever action to serve the Palestinians. It's very important that we name things as they are. It's very important that you listen to voices like Yumna and others, and don't say we don't have access. No, we can connect you with all the journalists on the ground, in the north, in the south, in the middle of Gaza. I will leave Perugia hoping the 3-4 sessions that were addressing Gaza and Palestine in general will influence, will affect some of you to talk, to raise your voices, and not really to do the witch hunting for Palestinians, because this is what majority of the media is doing. And I will leave with a question. Actually, it's the elephant in every room that I enter, talking to internationals. You need to answer this very simple question. Do Palestinians have the right to resist? Thank you.
Nadim, we have 30 seconds. معلش.
So basically, what I take is the issue of the accountability and impunity, and who's impune, and how this reflects on everybody. But I think we should, as a civic society, also again seek for accountability for all the ones who are complicit, including for the companies. We should not accept this situation. We should not accept the dehumanization, the double standards. We should name them and shame them, and if there are litigation and other procedures and mechanisms that we can take to do them. And this is really important. But I want to say generally that it's important, sometimes maybe people feel that, it's in Palestine, it's far away, it would not touch us. And I have to say that, like, what's happening in Palestine, like, Israel violated almost every rule and every convention, and since the Second World War, I mean, there were conventions, there are rules how to run wars, to protect civilians, international humanitarian law, etc., etc. Everything was violated, totally. Nothing was left, no hospital, no mosque, etc. And the level of use of AI-based weaponry, like Habsora, which is like using AI to gather the information to maximize the casualties of the civilians, right? And the other systems of facial recognitions and whatever you can think about of AI-based and technologies. These technologies from the beginning of the war are being marketed as battle-tested, right? They did not even wait until the war would end. So you can be rest assured that these technologies are now being sold to other countries and will be soon used also there. And if there's no accountability for Israel for what it's doing, in other wars you would see this, because this is, this is something that will impact everybody. This is, again, in terms of the technologies, in terms of weapons, in terms of what's happening there, that will be reflecting in many places. And unfortunately, people apparently don't care.
Thank you, Nadim, and thank you, Wafa and Yomna. And I invite you to speak to all three of them after this panel, and thank you very much, and thank you, IMS, for organizing this panel as well.